Is from Mercedes, Diwalan, and Piolo. Again, rendering us a very beautiful song. Yeah, June. Good evening to everyone. Good evening, June.
Good evening to everyone. Good evening, Myra. Good evening, Manong Ces, Manong Christine, Manong Rick, Aurora. Hello, Aurora, Rachel, and Scott from Bahrain. Good evening to all of us.
Yes, and once again, you are watching Indigenous People Talks. It's our monthly talk brought to you by Mabika's Foundation, the Netherlands. And the purpose of our talk is simply to come up with a topic that we discuss every month. Mostly this is a monthly talk show covering topics of interest related to Indigenous people, culture, values, issues, and more. And so today, what are we going to talk about, June?
Yeah, we are going to talk about issues, concerns of indigenous peoples. What we are going to, if we are going to, example, we are faced with a leader or a politician who is going to rule, or what are we going to ask as indigenous people? What is our concern, the issues that we have in mind, or what's going on with our indigenous people in the Philippines, for example, so you like that.
So, yes, because for the information of our audience and of course our friends and families back home in the Philippines, everyone know that the coming May this year is the national election in the Philippines. So everyone is busy the politicians are busy campaigning, and probably and hopefully us Filipinos and indigenous people are also busy looking into like who is the right person to vote for, right? Because I think it's very important to really take part in the election, but I don't know what everyone thinks, if it really matters or if it's even important to be like be serious in taking our rights to vote into consideration. If anyone is interested
Really?
to keep this program going, we always welcome a sponsorship on a monthly basis. And also we would like to welcome our viewers on Facebook. Keep watching and hope you can also get involved in discussing with us by commenting, and June will look into your comments on Facebook.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's a right to vote. We have the right to vote, but for me, ever since I stopped voting because it doesn't matter anyways. Anyways, my vote is just one, so it doesn't change anything at all. But I don't know, but this coming election, actually, I'm waiving my voting right. I'm not gonna vote because, as you can see, majority, yeah. So, but yeah, we should encourage other people as well to vote, to exercise their right to vote. And I hope they will choose the right leader.
Actually, the one that you said, your first sentence struck me most, because that's everyone's also concern. Like, why vote anyway when we know that it's gonna be, it's probably not gonna matter, right? That's
Yeah.
I think I've heard also a lot of people say that, because sometimes you kind of like lack the trust that our vote will count. But
Yeah.
maybe it does or maybe it doesn't. But I
Yeah.
think voting is still good. At least you exercise your right to vote, right?
Yeah.
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 Manung says, you have something to add?
Well, malagip ko, when I was connected with Migrant International, one of the campaigns that we made is the right for overseas voting.
Yes.
And fortunately, it was granted. So it is said that abroad, there are more than 1 million registered voters.
Yeah.
And here in Netherlands, we made efforts also to get the help of the embassy for the registration of voters. So quite significant yung overseas voting. And I suppose that overseas, especially Cordillera voters, would have an impact because of their connections back home and of the role that they play in the Philippine economy. Now, voting is both a right as well as a moral responsibility. And then it is granted by the Constitution, and it is very important for us to safeguard the sanctity of the ballot, considering that there are practices which tends to corrupt the electoral system in the Philippines. So it is a moral, ethical question. At the same time, it is a responsibility as a citizen of the country.
That is very well put, Manung says. And it's a moral responsibility. And indeed, we have this a chance to voice out. So why not, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, according to Machiavelli, politics has no relations with morals. So what the heck, right? That's politics. It doesn't serve majority.
There was a time when only men voted, and there were women who really fought that they could vote. So now that we are able to vote, why don't we use that right? I have been watching every day the campaign rallies in the Philippines, and it's so heartening to see young people. Well, I'm looking at Lenny Kiko. It's so heartening to look at the young people gathering there, volunteering to sponsor the campaign sorties. So I think everybody's happy to vote.
Yeah. The question is, I hope it will count, and we really have to fight that it should count, that every vote shall count, right? The other question also, Sis Rain, is like some people are questioning why are we interested in talking about voting in the Philippines when, well, in fact, we are actually abroad, right? And some of us may not be able to vote, some of us may vote, but still they are questioning, oh, why does it matter to you? And for me, I have an answer for that, but maybe some others would like to share, like why it matters for us here abroad to be like still involved in this matter of election in the Philippines. Maybe Manung Rick has something in mind. Or June?
But the question is, why shouldn't we be interested?
Yeah, that's their question. Yeah, why? Because they are wondering. You're already abroad, and actually some of you cannot vote. So why are you still interested in the election in the Philippines? But for me, I think we should be, and we are still, and it's nice that we are, right? So why?
Maybe that question pertains to the change of citizenship. It's not our, because how can we vote? How other people vote if they are Dutch citizen? They're German citizens now. Unless they're dual, that will give them a right to vote.
Yeah. It is also, I think, also like to answer that question is like for us, even though we are abroad, or even though if we have acquired like the nationality of our host country, we still have our families back home, right? We still have our loved ones back homes, that whoever we vote and how we influence voters it also affects our family back home. And also we hope that also through this program that we talk about issues, IP related issues tonight. Our aim is like to kind of like if ever we don't campaign for someone specifically, but we would like to raise some issues for us to see who among the current candidates right now can at least address these issues that we are about to bring. And hopefully, and this would also help us and guide us like, okay, we look for the person who kind of can help us address these issues, and probably those are the people we kind of like vote for back home, or at least influence our family back home to vote for. Yeah, so I think Sis June, what was the question again that we posed? Because we did like kind of a survey, right?
The question is, imagine if you have a chance to speak with world leaders or government leaders, what IP-related issues or concern would you like to raise and why? Yeah, that's it. It's bigger. My phone is so small, I cannot read so good.
Yes. So I think indeed, like if ever we have a chance, then what's IP related, and we did a mini survey, like what people thinks, right, about IP related issues that we would like to raise. And I think the first one got something to do about where is that? Oh yeah. Oh, that is yours, Anang Christine. First thing that came up in our survey is this one, and I will give the floor to Anang Christine because she talks.
No! Again, the first. Okay. Well, my answer is, well, if ever I will face these lawmakers, I will ask them to recognize the rights of all indigenous people. That includes the right to their ancestral domain, respect cultural traditions, and stop exploitations. If we go back ever since the Spanish time, the indigenous people are the most disrespected tribe and exploited. And after that, laws, PDs, presidential decrees, land, everything is against the indigenous people. The thing that I really don't like was the presidential decree made during the Marcos era, which is the presidential decree number 27. I think this is the one that states that 18 degrees and above are considered public forest areas, public land, and it's not disposable or inalienable. Thus, it belongs to the government with or yeah. So if you see that that part, all the indigenous people live 18 degrees above. So that means they are considered squatters. I hope whoever wins this election will find time to repeal. There are we have the IPRA, indigenous people, but then it did not help. We have we have the CADSI, we have the CALSI, but it did not help at all because there are certain requirements that the indigenous people have to provide before they can have their certificate of ancestral something. So I hope whoever wins will look back to these indigenous people, and I hope they will repeal all these laws that will affect them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Manang Christine, because indeed you have touched a lot of things and rights and even the current laws that has to be repealed. And the hour that we have is not enough to explain it, but you have already pointed out the things that people could at least dig into in a deeper level, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And speaking of, because in here you mentioned about the rights of indigenous people, but respect to cultural traditions and stop the exploitation. And there's also the mention of ancestral domain. And interestingly, Ben also mentioned something about that. Like this is what he said. This is a very long one, but when you look at the highlighted text, it talks about the boundary conflicts. Like there are still a lot of people killing even for land.
Yeah.
Kunanatoy no panggap ti luti ti pagsasaritaan ket narigat lalo ta daddu mga awan ijay lugar da ket ni awanen inalan ti daduman ti luti da karon no naglaing da nga agsao nagijay na agong ti luti. So speaking about those who are greedy for land and kaadwan nga lutluti ket tinawid tayo. So he's talking about the ancestral land. Itinawid tayo ti apu tayo so nga kaadwan ket awan ti tax declaration na. So this is more about how do we regulate ancestral lands, right? How can we ensure legal protection for indigenous peoples who have inherited such lands? So I think Ben has also complement the issue that you've pointed out, Manang Christine, and for him it's more on like protecting our ancestral lands. And indeed, will there be anything you think our current politicians or the upcoming politicians can do about ancestral lands? Because this is also tied to the issues of land grabbing and
human rights violation as well.
Yeah, and those things. I wonder what you think. Because actually, for now, we have for the ancestral lands, it's possible to actually apply for titling, right? That would make that would give us more the legal protection. You apply for titling, but I think Ben's point is also like for people who are not staying in their land for such a long time, and people will just grab them, and that happens. I think not only. Done by other, but also within the clan, within the
family, yes.
Within the family, right? I think you have something to say here, June.
Yeah, yeah. It's mostly yung mga pamilya mismo ang nag-aaway about sa sa lote
inheritance.
Diba? Yung that they kung hindi nakapag-aral yung isa, yung i-grab nila yung hihiramin lang ba yung titles, and then they are just going to put it in their name, and then later the other one didn't know that it was stolen from her, and then they will fight.
So do you think we need more like strict regulations when it comes to land ownership?
Yeah, I think titling, but about what Ben have said, that we have namana natin sa ating mga ninuno, how could they title it? And they didn't know that they have to title it before. And now, and they know that it is from them, but they did not title it, so I think they have to title it.
Oh, you mean lack of information about how to do it? Yeah.
Yes, and of
Okay.
course they did not study or they did not go to school to do. They really do not know how to do it. Nobody told them how to do it. They only know that it's from them. So
yeah. So I guess that's indeed one good thing to look into, though we don't know that much in details how they do it. But indeed, it would be good if there are like clear regulations on this, and if there are ever, then at least it would be known to the public, right? Mm.
and of course, when the government see it, then it's from them. It's but like here, it's a government land. Then nobody can enter it. It is a government land.
Yeah, true. Because as we keep on talking about land, this was also the one that is shared by Manong Ses. Like another issue that is on a broader scale is like the rights of indigenous people to our like also ancestral lands. Manong Ses could talk more about this because this is also tied to the build project that the current administration is doing, and there are like dumps everywhere, and why are people, especially indigenous people communities, are against this kind of development. Can you talk more about this, Manong Ses?
The question of land ownership and the law is really a issue and a problem which work against the indigenous peoples in the Philippines and elsewhere. You know, Spanish colonialization affirmed by United States colonial rule and also by the recent constitution of the Philippines says that it goes for the privatization of land and a declaration that all land which is not titled belongs to the state.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is a practice in the Cordillera that our forefathers did not have private title to the land. Land is owned by the community. Malagip ko na dyan ko na ama makliing when he was asked, ay nangay ti title ti lupam na ipoprotektam against the Chico Dam. And then he said, how could we have title to the land? The land outlives us. And this is affirmed by other IP leaders who said that, you know, and it is happening, and unfortunately it's happening also in the Cordillera and IP land. Lands are being quickly privatized. And because of the privatization, you know, it would fall into the hands of big corporations or big farmers for that matter. So there's a clash between our concept of land ownership and that which is propagated by the state. Now, hindi lang yung question ng land ownership, but as we try to make a claim of our land, as the Carino clan did during the American colonial time, in which the American court says that indeed there's a such thing as ancestral land. But the issue now is most or many of our indigenous people communities are confronted with what is called development aggression. We made mention of giant dams, hydroelectric dams, currently the Kaliwa Kanan Dam, impacting on the Dumagats and Remontado indigenous people in Rizal in Quezon province, and which will bring about their massive displacement and the destruction of the environment. Unfortunately, the same is happening among the Isnig people, indigenous people of Apayao, because again, a Chinese-funded hydroelectric plant is surely going to submerge several Isnig villages, destruction of the environment. So these are the things that are going on. So an immediate concern is how to support the struggle of the Dumagas and Remontados to oppose the dam, which is also a protection of the environment together with the SNEG. And this is a issue that could be raised during the electoral campaign to make people aware, to make people candidates aware in the Cordillera and the national level that our IPs are concretely confronted with this problem, and this problem could bring about massive displacement and the elimination of the community as well as the destruction of the environment.
I totally agree with you, Manung says,
Yes.
because there was also, well, this has been an issue that is ongoing for a long time, but I think what the people or even those who are not involved don't understand is that because they always question, why are you against the building of the dams when this is for the development, this is for the progress of the community, because it brings about electricity, right? That is their common argument. But then when I watched this documentary, and even as we hear, you remember we had our Indigenous People Month last year, and our guests from the Philippines, Visayas, and Mindanao explained themselves that even Luzon, that yes, indeed, what do they need the electricity for if their livelihoods are taken away from them, if they have no source of income to live, if their farms will be destroyed, what would they need the electricity for, right? So it's like what is this development for kung no DJ mo't pagbiyagan dati mismo nga madadao, right? So that was
Yeah.
Well,
just like San Roque Dam.
Yeah,
There's a
another
barangay
example
closed.
is maybe another example is not only building a dam, but then these rich people from China that the president probably because of commercial, they destroyed these chocolate hills.
Also.
Yeah, I think about the building of the dam, the people is going to be separated because they are going, of course, they have workers from China and they have workers from the community itself. So people who are working from the community is going to have the profit, profit na hindi naman tatagal, temporarily profit, yung sweldo nila, and they will like it. And the others, and when they add without analyzing or realizing the fact that it will be yung pangmatagalang sakripisyo, patagalang ano yun? Kasing mga magagawa yung dam and then they will have no more livelihood after kasi nga nakuha yung ano nila, land nila without realizing that. And the others, they know already na okay, they did not work in that dam, they did not have profit in that dam, they will have no more water, no more livelihood because they are replaced. Question to Scott, because he is not, of course, about, are you also having this topic on your study about issues on IP, issues about IPs? Yes.
Yeah, it's one of the hot topics actually in some of our discussions in our classes in UP Baguio. But there are, of course, other issues that are related to that. And for some of us who are working on language and culture documentation, it's something that we are also batting for because in my experience, I noticed that most politicians don't focus on, or they neglect the this idea of documenting, at least documenting the intangible heritage of the community. A lot of politicians are just focused on infrastructure projects and and
Yeah.
and they, yeah, because working on intangible heritage does not generate money.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's
true.
quite
Yeah.
it is quite frustrating for us who do language and culture documentation that only a few are really only a few politicians are actually interested. Um, in my community, for example, I was so happy that our barangay captains were so enthusiastic about our dictionary project. And during our first consultation with the community, they actually provided the funds. And that was
Oh,
one thing that I really wanted,
wow.
because I wanted we wanted the community to take an ownership over the project. That's one reason why I bypassed the NCIP, because when I look at, for example, NCAP AO number 3 series of 2012, the requirements for researchers to do language documentation, for example, are so onerous. And it's so against our cultural practices. For example, why do I have to pay the NCIP just to go to my community and document our language? Why do I have to be required to pay my own uncles, my relatives, in order for me to interview them? And a lot of language researchers are having the same issues among their indigenous communities. So what I did was to go directly, because I was with also with Michio Yuneno Reyes, and we went directly to the community, and then we obtained our own version of FPIC. So the president of our Banao Tribal Association Incorporated, who is now the congressman, asked me to draft the document. And so right then and there, we drafted the document. All the members of the officers of the tribal organization signed the document, and we stipulated clearly in that particular document that we are going to do language and culture documentation, but we are not allowed to commercialize it, and that copyright should belong to the community and not to us, the researchers, or to any other institution. And that's one thing that we're working with UP Baguio, because once we come up with our dictionary, Banao dictionary, we really want it to be copyrighted by the Banao Tribal Association, or if not possible, jointly with UP Baguio. Interestingly, Lawrence Reed, with whom we collaborated lately on, or recently rather, on this book published by the University of Tokyo. It's a collection of folk tales from my community in Banao, and it's coming out. We'll send you a copy of that, by the way. Interestingly, Laurie is going to launch the Isinay Dictionary, which she edited. It's going to be published by Cordillera Studies Center, UP Baguio. They're going to launch it this June, and it's quite touching to me, because here you have a foreigner who has been working in the Philippines for 50 years, documenting our language, writing about us, helping us, trying to understand our own history, and yet we have politicians who don't really care about supporting researchers who document their own languages. And I'd like to ask politicians, especially in the Cordillera, how what they are doing about it. Why can't they, for example, institutionalize this effort at documenting our language and culture? And sorry, I've been talking for so long. There are lots of things to unpack, actually, but that's the point there is that if I were to ask our local politicians about their platforms, I would like to ask them, what are you doing about the intangible heritage of our indigenous communities? Because our intangible heritage is as valuable as the tangible things in our the tangible parts of our culture. So sorry for talking so long.
No, don't be
No,
sorry,
it's okay. It's
Scott,
okay.
because I think what you are saying is really straight to the point,
Important.
and it's
Yeah.
really like very important. And you are right in what you said, that most of the politicians now are focused on where we could get money, right? It's mostly like financially motivated. But those things that you mentioned, which is more also more related to like education, is not really taken into consideration. And it's so sad to hear that you have to pay for all these things for you to be able to gather this information that you needed. But thankfully you are able to find your way, and we congratulate you for the work that you have done, and hope that you will continue doing it, and that we hope that more of our government leaders would really also look into this aspect of how we could preserve our knowledge, how we could document the language. And you're just starting. That's in your area in Kalinga, right?
Yeah,
And
and
so
actually, what we need is a comprehensive language mapping, not only of Kalinga but of the
yes,
Cordillera
yes,
as well. It's a huge task. But, it's
Yeah.
possible.
exactly. And by the way, before we move on, we just like to greet the ones who dropped in online on Facebook. Sheila, thank you for dropping by, and hope you continue. Flor, hello, gandang gabi dyan. Timarji, also Manang Alice, and another friend of mine, Lamin. Yeah. Okay. Any thoughts? Anyone would like to comment on what Scott said before I keep on talking?
May I say something?
Yes,
Something related to what Scott said.
Yes.
I think it's something also about intellectual property rights, because I remember there was somebody who's a weaver in Sagada who wanted to patent the design of the Kankanai tapis, and the community protested because you cannot do that. That belongs to the community. And what is another one? And also that about ni Ngay Yangud. You remember that that
Yeah,
case?
the tattoo.
Yeah,
the
that
tattoo artist.
That's somebody wanted to put it in the internet for everyone in the world to follow that, but that cannot be. And then just let her sign with her fingerprint. So it's good the people of Kalinga of that at least
protested.
natin naili nga diyan. Scott,
Yes.
Buskalan.
Kalan.
Of Buskalan, they protested against that.
Yeah.
So that's one
last-
that you should be very careful of, the intellectual property rights of the Igorots of we Cordillerans.
Yeah.
Another point that Scott has mentioned is about the documentation of our indigenous knowledge, which is how come that, again, I keep saying this in the other speaking engagement I have, that how come that foreigners are the ones who are always interested in documenting whatever we have, and if there is any initiative, it's always foreigners who come and like study there. But it's so sad that indeed politicians or leaders or those in authority don't see the value of this, and they don't support it, right, as you said. But that's also like a big question. Would be great if like more and more of the generation nowadays start getting interested, start researching, and try to also document of what is still left with us now, especially our elders are growing old, and those back home. It would be nice to start also like getting knowledge and wisdom and insights from those elders that are still alive today before it's too late, right? So kudos, Scott and your team for doing what you're doing. So hope we get a copy of your work when it's ready. Yeah, and that ties to the to the next one. Actually, this ties also to what Angeline, who also replied to our research question. One thing that she mentioned is that she would ask about, like, of course, equality and justice, something related to rights and protection of our children. Because of the rampant corruption, morality of government. So, as you mentioned, a right to education. So, she's also asking how would our leaders of today address these issues. Thank you, Angie, for sharing. And tied to that is, of course, from my side, I also said that would be nice to really implement this indigenous people education. I mean, properly with quality controlled textbooks, as we have seen in the recent years, right? There are a lot of mistakes in the textbooks that are being used in public schools, and it is kind of like also tied to like how they discriminate indigenous people back home, because they are putting information on textbooks that are not real, or are not true, and that is yeah, also tied to what Daisy mentioned about correct information. But anyway, back to education. I also call for like the colonization of education that is tied to rewriting our history from the perspective of us indigenous people and integrating indigenous knowledge in academia. So if I have a chance to speak with the government officials, then I would focus more on the side of education, just like what Scott also have mentioned. So if there's anyone who has also thoughts on this, please feel free.
I think Abra is integrating some cultural education in their prospectus in their area, because they find it important to integrate or introduce the culture of the Abranians and as well as the Highland Abranians. So that's why if you see them, their culture is a little bit is really intact among the tribal groups over there. Not like Benguet, of course. Our place in Benguet is totally different. Because we cannot even hold a gong without a kanyao. Not like the other tribes, yeah?
Yeah.
But now
Yeah.
they can play the gongs in school, but I don't know, there's still a limit. So, and we are not, though there are books written about our cultures, you can find it in the Benguet library and La Trinidad, but it's much more better if generation from generation from generation, so we can see the development. But yeah.
And like we are building a knowledge base, yeah, from one
Yeah.
generation to another, and really nice if that would continue. But also on the aspect of education, like I mentioned about the colonization of education, because you just see how we learn our English alphabet back home. For example, we learn our ABC in grade 1 or in kindergarten, but A is for apple, but apple is not a fruit in the Philippines. It's like an imported fruit, right?
Yes.
Why don't you use, say, for example, atis or the other fruit in the Philippines that starts with letter A, right? Things like those, very simple things that we could incorporate, but it's just the colonial mentality we have. So those things,
Yes.
I really hope that politicians
Well,
to
yeah,
consider.
and then
Yeah.
we should stop listening to country music. We should start listening.
Yeah, if I have to ask, how many of you can sing like our local song by heart? Oh yeah, I'm also a guilty one. I cannot sing
Yes, I
one.
can.
Yeah.
I love listening to country music. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's part of education as well, because we have that's the international language, and we have to deal with other cultures by using the international language English. Our own language, like Tagalog, we cannot speak to other people, other culture in different world with Tagalog. So yeah, maybe that's why we are colonized, because English is the international language, and that's why we're speaking in English today.
To be honest, all of the babies at home are English. and there's somebody talking with them in Tagalog, they don't understand.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
and if you see, there's a little discrimination between Highlanders and Lowlanders, because Highlanders speak better English and the way they speak. And then, yeah, I don't know. I might say something wrong. So, yeah. That's
Right. But I think you
Period.
touch upon the part on discrimination, but I think this can come from different views, perspective, right? But if I'm not mistaken, that was also raised by June in her answer. In her answer to the question, because she said something like, what is that, June?
Yeah, it's already 2002, and it's still, how could the people didn't know how other people look like? They still believe that there are tales of the Igorots, or like that. that Igorots are black, and like that, like what you have said in the textbook, they have curly hair. It's just misinformed that makes the Igorots being discriminated. Yeah, it is just the misinformation. So, but in the Netherlands, that's why I said, if in the Netherlands they said, if the government said you have to wear mask, everybody have to wear mask, and then nobody is they just follow. What if there is a law in the Philippines that they said stop discrimination, and they are very afraid of ano yun, yung buta?
Fine. Yeah.
That they will be fined for so many money, for a lot of money, and they are very afraid of that. That it would be good because they will not discriminate anymore.
Yeah.
Because here in the Netherlands, when the government said this, you do this, they do. People do. Don't do this, people don't do. So it's just simple. It's just like that. If there is an anti-discrimination law, that it will make people very when somebody discriminate, then they will be fined for so much money, then they will be very afraid to discriminate. That there is no more discrimination for us. Example, for us especially Igorots.
May I say something? Regarding education and the things that are being mentioned in the textbooks, I think it is not only politicians who will attend to this, because even if we raise it to them, it still goes down to the Department of Education. We have Igorots, Cordillerans who have been there, but I do not know what they are doing regarding this. Some have even been commissioners of the higher education in the Philippines. Some have become regional directors. So they should see to it that these things in those textbooks should be changed.
Yeah, I agree.
It goes down to the quality control, right? Who is in charge of this being controlled? But I remember before we opened the we opened the Zoom, Scott was talking about like right, Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were like you approve like a content to be published, but in the end the content that you approve wasn't the one that was published. How was that?
I have nothing against the CCP or the team I worked with, but we worked on the revision of the Kalinga entry in the CCP encyclopedia, which was recently published, I think in 2017. So we worked long and hard on that. But I noticed that when the final copy came out, there were things that I as a Kalinga would not approve of, that I Kalinga would not put into that article, but maybe it's part of the policy followed by or guidelines followed by the CCP. So we were thinking that, as you yourself pointed out, if we were to have a proper understanding of who we are, for example, in the Cordilleras, indigenous peoples in the Cordilleras, we should write our own history. And on a positive note, though, NPSPC is coming up with an ethno-linguistic history of the mountain province, and it's one chance for people in the mountain province to write their own history, so from their own perspective, and not necessarily follow the dicta of a Manila-centric institution or a body of people.
What's that?
So,
The MS Peña Mountain Province State Polytechnic College, is that?
Yes, ma'am. The Mountain Province Polytechnic, yeah.
Oh, because I think it's also the Mountain Province who only came out with a book. That was that the committee for publishing that book was spearheaded by the late Caridad Fairod, and they made a study of the different. Oh, they made the stories, not really stories, but they let the different municipalities in the Mountain Province write their own. Not really history, but what is the situation there from history up to the present time, and I think that's the only book that I saw. And then so I don't know if the other provinces are also interested in that they come up with a book, for example, Kalinga and the different and the 5 other provinces, so we will know also what are the for example, what are the municipalities there. Even that one we don't even know.
Yeah.
We actually have a book like that published by the DALG. I think because when I was with the DALG, we used to have those, but then it's watered down, and we need to come up with our own work.
Yeah.
Correct.
So hopefully MPSPC started it, and maybe the other provinces will follow suit later.
Oh, that's good.
Hopefully, well, yeah, that's good. If somebody initiates a thing like that in other provinces, it would be good, really good. Yeah.
No, because in that case of that book, the New Mountain Province, it was even if it was that committee, but it was the province under the Governor Dalog, who was who was the one who approved that project, and so they worked on it and published it.
By the way, there's a book. I don't know if you can see it. Shiva. It's published by the Cordillera Study Center. It's written by there were several authors here. Manang Auntie Briggs, Senaida Hamadapawid. Jimmy Fong is also here. I think it was edited by Jimmy. So yeah, so it's an updated version of the original book ni Kwan Dada ni Auntie Briggs ka ni Kwa Bagamaspad on Benguet, a people's history. So this is a good one, and we hope to have more of books like this in the future.
Yes, hopefully. Yeah, we would love to have more of those books here in the Netherlands, because we're short of resources. We're short of resources here. So
why don't you write the Cordillera Study Center, Myra?
Yeah, that's a good idea. We will do so. Yeah, I think so.
And Scott, is that being sold by the Cordillera Study Center? That you're the
book? It is.
Oh,
yeah, available soon. I think you can order through Shopee or something.
No, but
well, when somebody goes home, it's cheaper.
We have no shopping here.
Yeah, well, so when somebody goes home, then somebody can pick it up from UP.
Correct.
Yeah.
Is there Amazon?
No, I don't think it's covered under Amazon. Shopee is only local.
Awan just Amazon.
Awan niya. Maid.
So let's check that out. So to kind of like sum up our discussion on like the issue we wanted to raise in relation to education, I would just like to share also what Manang Daisy Camiwet shared. Like, if she is to face a government official, what would she say? And she said another issue is the ability to filter information and distinguish what is evidence-based information and what is not. So I think this has to also go with like laws related to, in the era of fake news and with the way that technology helps spread information, it is important that politicians are aware of their role in providing clear and correct information. But I think this doesn't only work for politicians, but I think in all agencies that everyone should be providing clear and correct information, right?
Yeah.
So, but indeed, it's nice if our government officials or those in authority would be keen into checking this, that the fake news won't be so rampant, especially in the era, yeah, in today's time for social media and everything else. So yeah, if anyone has a comment on this, please feel free. That's also indeed a good point. Um, yeah, so far those are like the IP related issues that we've talked about. But on a serious note, also there's one more that I would like to share, which comes from Manung Says, and this is also like a very a serious issue that we have now. This is more on the red tagging of those who are kind of like fighting for our rights back home. Manung Says, do you want to say something about this?
Yes, I would like to relate this earlier that one, in terms of history of indigenous people, particularly Cordillera, it's good to know that our people are making history. And the important thing is to document how they're making history and what is that which guides them in achieving that history. An example, I think, is the heroic struggle of the Bontoc and Kalinga people against the Chicodam River project. It tells so much about our people. It tells so much about their aspirations. It tells so much about their values. But the first thing that happened is they stood up for their right. They resisted even bringing about death in their community. Now, with regards to education, I think we should also recognize that indigenous people are taking initiative to develop curriculum that speaks of their own values, their situation, and their rights. A very good example are the schools of the Lumad in Mindanao, which was supported by the church and some, I think, European entities. In this school, in the curriculum, they're taught they're taught history about their own people. They are told about current problems, what are the roots of these problems, like development aggression, from mining corporations, from plantations and all of that. And they are taught to recall their value of upholding their own community. And for this reason, they are red tagged. Very recently, 5 of them were killed. 2 were voluntary teachers, 1 UP graduate. And it was so nice of him to volunteer to give up. He was a cum laude, I think, in some technical course, but he decided to do some teaching work among the Lumad people. So he plus another teacher and 3 other Lumads were killed because earlier they were red tagged. So this is one concrete problem that we are confronting. Even in the Cordillera, the funny thing is the mayor of Baguio, Magalong, provided an occasion for the Baguio activists, most of them from the Cordillera People's Alliance, to have a dialogue in the hall. And then Magalong ordered removal of the posters that says so-and-so are terrorists, so-and-so organization are what you call that, or non-person non grata to this. And for that reason, the spokesperson of the National Task Force against Communists, something like that, Badoy, attacked Magalong for that matter. When all that Magalong was wanting to do is respect and honor the right of the indigenous peoples and people to be critical about the government and government policies, even as they try to affirm what their organization or what their people would like to have. So I think one significant call to protect our people, activists, indigenous peoples, and all of that, educators for that matter, is to abolish abolish this national task force for the elimination of local armed communists and shift its billions of funds to assistance. For example, it is said that Benguet or Cordillera farmers are losing millions per day because their products are being competed, or the prices of their products are lower because of the importation of so much, or the smuggling of so much vegetables, which is, well, of course, against their interest. So I think it's good for us to recognize that our people, indigenous peoples, especially in Mindanao, are taking efforts to educate themselves about their own values, and on that matter, they are victims of red tagging. So for me, an important call. Even President Lenny, I mean, the presidential candidate Lenny was kind of red tagged, which is not good, which is unconstitutional, and it strikes fear among our people, especially those who like to be critical about certain policies of the government as it impacts on the people. So I think an important issue for the election campaign and for the candidates is to address this whole question of red tagging, and more importantly, about the huge budget, I think 19 billion pesos into this LCAG thing, be shifted, especially now that we're recovering from COVID, for health and economic assistance for people who are in need, especially farmers, workers, and other sectors of society.
Thank you very much, Manong says. Indeed, that's a very good point. How could it not be so clear? You know, when it comes to budget allocation, right? Like what you have mentioned, rather than allocating this 19, what did you say, billion? Was it billion?
Billion.
It is said,
Yeah, 19 billion pesos for this NTF, the National Task Force, to it could indeed also allocate it for social services that would be more beneficial to the people indeed. But any other thoughts on what Manong says shared? Because yeah, that was about red tagging, and it's always an ongoing issue back home. And the more I think the people resist it, and then the more repression they receive. If not repression, then they either got killed or they are being threatened and their life is in danger. So yeah, kind of like a heavy stuff to think about. But if there's anyone who would like to comment, please do so. But I hope this is something that could indeed be touched upon by upcoming candidates. We talked about also earlier repealing some acts, some
Decrease. And
yes, yeah, and one of those acts that we would also like to share is one that was mentioned by Manang Yvonne. This is more regarding the Mining Act, right, Manang Yvonne?
Yes, it's the Republic. I'll have to read this because
Yes.
this is being recorded, then I don't want to make any mistake.
I will also.
It's the Republic Act 7942, or the Philippine Mining Act of 1995. And I mean, it's also something related, I think, to that ancestral domain, because it
Yes.
in the policy of that Mining Act, it says that all mineral resources in public and private lands within the territory and exclusive economic zone of the Republic of the Philippines are owned by the state.
the state. Yeah.
So it shall be the responsibility of the state to promote their rational exploration, development, utilization, and conservation through the combined efforts of the government and private sector in order to enhance national growth in a way that effectively safeguards the environment and protects the rights of affected communities. That's it.
Yeah, so for you, it's like you would like to ask them to repeal the Philippine Mining Act. and replace it with the Alternative Minerals Management Bill. Would
Or sustainable development for the indigenous people, not only for big corporations, you know, because everything that's being done under this mining act, it transgresses the rights and the properties of the indigenous people, and they are being displaced actually. And these big mining corporations are the one who are gaining. It's not the local community.
Destroying the land.
Yeah. Environmentally, profit from that activity, it doesn't go to the local, it goes to the national, and of course the company that really operates the mining operation, which is mostly
also that what I said a while ago, it separates communities in two, the one who profit and the one who doesn't.
Well, in the first place, I think this mining, that was the purpose of the Spaniards coming to the Philippines. They wanted to look for the gold, so they were really bent on. They were seeing these people coming from the mountains, selling in the lowlands with all those trinkets of gold, and they really wanted. And it was in Benguet that they were able to open those mines, and then later on, the Americans came, and then the Japanese also took over, and now they're there. But the thing now is all that gold that is being mined from the country is being exported
by foreign.
By foreign, I mean, if we were to have that gold, we would have enough gold reserves for the country.
Yeah.
And for the people who live there, they don't have water anymore. They don't have fresh water. They don't have anymore. And, that is the problem.
Well, with these mining companies, they also say that they are helping also the community. If you look at Lepanto, for example, many of Igoros have been educated in Lepanto because of the mines, even maybe in Balatok or
they have
other parts of Benguet. And anyway, after this, when this bill was, when this mining act was promulgated, we have this alternative minerals management bill, which seeks to scrap the present mining act. And it says here that the bill champions conservation of non-renewable mineral resources for the benefit of both the present and future generations of Filipinos by adopting a sustainable, rational, needs-based minerals management geared towards effective utilization of mineral resources for an ecologically sound national industrialization and modernization of agriculture. So this House bill was already
implemented?
No, not yet. It's pending, but it was authored by Teddy Bagilat of Ifugao. He's now running for Senate. Representative Carlos Padilla of Nueva Ecija, Representative Kaka Bagao of Dinagat, I don't know where that is. Representative Leandro Jesus Madron of Romblon, Walden Bello, Ibarra Gutierrez of Akbayan. You have Cagayan de Oro Second District, Rufus Rodriguez and Maximo Rodriguez of Abamin. So, and it was in Senate, this one, it's called now the AMMB, is authored by the Senator Sergio Osmeña. So there is this bill that has been, I think it has been there since 10 years ago already. So it has to be, it has to be taken up again.
Oh my God.
It has to be picked up again.
Well, I hope the party list that really stands for this particular, hopefully they're going to make it to the Senate. So at least we have representatives of...
Speaking of which, we're talking about who among... are there any indigenous people representatives running for the upcoming election? Indeed,
Yes.
that's an interesting question.
Yes.
And thanks to Manong Ses for coming up with this partial list. We indeed have, and like what you mentioned, Manang Yvonne, Teddy Bagilat, who was
Yeah.
who was part of that drafting that
Alternative
Mining bill.
Mining
minerals
bill.
management bill.
Yeah, is the only IP candidate running for Senate, so that's a good thing that we have a representative. We also have the IP advocates Nery Colmenares, Elmer Bonglabog, Amara Lindasan, Angel Kalimba, and Dr. Jim Lindo. And I hope there will be more of them who are gonna step up and represent
Yeah.
our issues. But also, even if they are not indigenous people, I hope they will also pick up some of these issues and be able to address them as they come into position. Because indeed, I think these are all very important matters, not only for us indigenous people from the Cordillera, but actually all over the Philippines, right? Because there are like a lot of us back home facing these almost similar problems and issues. So because of the time limit we have, we could have like a one round of wrap up before we probably end our session tonight. And I think we have a very we have a collective list of issues that we would like to raise, and yeah, we could wrap them up for now. Let's start with you, Manang Yvonne. Any last comments?
I think we have touched several topics in this in our discussion tonight: education, mining, this alternative minerals management bill. I suggest that we could also take this up one subject at a time and focus on them in maybe in 2023.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Suggestion taken. Thanks,
Yeah.
Manang Yvonne.
Language also, like Scott mentioned.
Documentation. That was
Actually, it's a very nice discussion because we covered everything, most likely not. And yeah, I agree with Manang Yvonne that topic by topic we should discuss it next year, so there's more expansion and expounding of other ideas. And maybe from these ideas we could make a certain like a request to the government that this is the request of the people of the indigenous people of the Netherlands. I don't know how you reword it, and probably we could send it to the party list who are in support of their bills or whatever.
by then we hope in those people we name would be true,
Yeah.
would be in position by next year, right? That would
Yeah.
be-
And I hope Teddy Bagilat will make it because yeah, Lakay Laman was not able to made it the last time because he was the only Igorot who tried to run for Senate, but he failed. So I hope Bagilat will make it.
Yeah.
So there's one from the Cordillera.
Looking forward to that. Manong says, thank you, Manang Christine. Manong says,
During the early 60s, before I married Yvonne, nagtrabaho ko sa Minas, Akupan Balatok Mines. So I was an underground worker. I volunteered to work to get experience. And then I organized a class of kapatas to take a look at the entire mining process. And then I brought them to the mill. Now, for 15 days,
Ay, not there, yung gold bullion.
for 15 days, Akupan Balatok Mine was able to produce 16 gold bars.
Wow.
But we held it that way. That was the product of the workers. And we were told, pangipanangay dito balitok. Kunada, it is 90% pure gold. It is shifted to Fort Knox, United States to lift the 10% to make it pure gold. That was how productive we were. But it also shows that very slowly, in the long struggle for us to protect our mineral resources, these are being taken away from us. And these are irreplaceable mineral resources. You know, Philippines, especially Mindanao, is known to be the place where it ranks fifth, I think, in terms of copper, gold, and other resources in the whole world. And this is what the people of Mindanao, particularly the Lumads, are trying to resist. And for resisting, they are red tagged. And for being red tagged, they are killed, imprisoned, or attacked, and all of that. No? Ngayon, I think it's good for us to continually pray for and work towards a clean, peaceful, and a fair election. There are already indications that so much money is being used to buy votes, so that even the church came up with the ethical question: if you are poor and then you're given money by the politicians, it's okay for you to accept it kasi pera mo rin yan at saka kinakailangan mo. But still, use your conscience to vote for the candidate whom you think embodies your aspiration and the aspiration of the people. The other thing that we could also do is, for us in Europe, we take a look at how elections are conducted. For example, here in Netherlands, I am happy to note, and I note with some kind of appreciation, that political parties are given subsidy for the campaign. So it means that all political parties receive a subsidy, and I think they cannot go beyond that. Make use of that limited thing for your own campaign purposes. I think it's a good lesson that we could learn and possibly think of working it out in such a way that we propose it to make elections in the Philippines less expensive, and for the rich candidates to win because they have so much funds, corrupted funds or whatever sources there are. One other issue that I would like to bring out is to echo the sentiment of our people in the Philippines, the nationalist sector, the fisher folks, for the Philippine government or for the candidates to affirm Philippine sovereignty over the West Philippine Sea, which is so full of resources, mineral, oil, gas resources, apart from the fishery, which could be a boost to the Philippine economy if only we continue to affirm our right, our sovereign right over it, and to adopt measures to access these resources for the benefit of the country.
Yes.
Ako at Dug, sorry.
Yeah, it's long, but they are all substantial. Yeah, thank you, Manung says. And one practical takeaway indeed is, why don't we learn from the practices of elections abroad, right? You mentioned about the limited budget given to politicians, and that is indeed what they do here. And with that also, there is a clean, as in literally clean election, because there's no picture of faces everywhere. There is this allotted space where they could put their posters and things, so it doesn't end up like a dirty street of streets, unlike in the Philippines. So those are just like practical things we could learn, and apart from the other issues that you added. Thank you, Manung Ses. And Manung Rick, would you be able to give your last comments if you have? Manung Rick said his connection is not good, but I'm not sure if he could share some thoughts now.
Was he able to listen to the discussion?
Yes, they were watching online. And hello, Zanita, also for tuning in. Thank you. Manung Rick, do you have some concluding remarks? We cannot hear you.
Baka naka-mute ni Manong.
If not, maybe Rachel. Rachel, could you? Or Then we go to Scott. Any last concluding remarks, Scott, before we end? You're mute. Yeah.
I'd like to thank you for inviting me to join the discussion tonight. I really learned a lot, and it's a huge encouragement for me to discover like-minded kailian and to listen, just listen, and discuss some relevant issues about us, especially about us indigenous peoples. So thank you, and salutes to you, hats off to you, Myra, for spearheading this, and I hope to listen into more discussions later.
Oh yes, please, Scott. You're always welcome, and I think there's a lot more that we could talk about, especially on what you're doing, which we value so much.
I hope one or whoever runs the issues, the politicians, not only what they have made, what they have, no anyaman ti na ipatakderda nga kalsada or outpost or something like that. Also the issues that we talk about, sana meron sila about in their platform about that. Kasi what we have seen for example, yes, for example, the congressman inarabid na piman dito nga kalsada. That is what people are looking at. It's not about what the environment is. I mean, the congressman inarabid na piman dito nga kalsada. Ni mayor awanti inarabid na. Kasjay, di ba? Awanti na ipatakder na nga building, awan na ipatakder na nga kasta, awan na ipatakder na kasjay. Kasjay ti mentality ti tao. It's not about what we have talked about. It's not about about the rights of indigenous people, about mining and so, and they are not about that. They giving it a tao. So I hope na one of our politics is our DIJ platform da about that. Who?
Exactly.
Who? Yeah.
Exactly. June. It's like do concentrate not only on the tangible things but also the intangible, but it's also up to the people in the community that we should stop valuing a person's thing by what they see that the person has built, because sometimes a person may be involved in initiatives for education, for social services, for the environment, and these things cannot be seen, right? So it's also like depends on the people in the community. But again, there comes again information, but giving right information in the education and everything else in the media, and so hope this is all carried out. Yeah, sorry for cutting you. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, that's
May I say something?
Sure.
I was wondering if you listened to the ABS-CBN, because ni Teddy Bagilat was interviewed, so I listened to him one time, and maybe you would like to listen to him again, because he is talking also about what Cesar said about this and that and ECLAC, that one, yes, and then he was saying that that fund there, it's like a repetition of what's being given to the community, so you can abolish that and then give that funds directly to the programs in the communities. And for one thing, I think he's also a famous person, because he's the only one always using
wearing
anti-ipugaw. Kaya na minsan tanto sala, hindi ko natin nagpay na minsan. Anyway.
Awan pa brief na.
Oh my God!
When?
Oh yeah, because
talagang naka-brief talagang makikita di ubot na.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for the good time and the good discussion, and hope to see you again next time. And for all the viewers on Facebook as we live stream, thank you for watching with us. Florissa, Margie, and Alice, Myra, and Susan, Sheila and Victoria. Thank you very much. And once again, thank you, June, Scott, Manung Ses, Manang Yvonne, Rachel, and Manang Christina, and Manung Rick. Good evening, everyone. Until next time. And
Anbiyan.
goodbye.
Bye.
Good night.
Good